One of the soldiers thought maybe I had a diamond, maybe I had money. Pried open my hand, saw a picture, tore it up. I have no idea what my mother, father, brothers, anybody looked like.
Hello, Rena. How are you?
Thank God I'm fine. How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem.
Good.
First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule. I don't know many people that are as busy as you are. It's really remarkable.
Well, for my age, there are a lot of people. You're probably much busier, but I've gotten busier lately. And thank God I'm able to still speak, and I think it's very important.
Hearing from you what you're feeling today, as well as what you went through, to hear such a thing, whether it's on Yom HaShoah, Asara B'Tevet, or any of the meaningful days that suddenly we're looking to hear about the Holocaust, we're suddenly looking to hear about atrocities, becomes a lot more popular.
I think many people sort of feel that you should compare what happened in the Holocaust and what happened October 7th. And I'm not sure you have to compare when things are so terrible. But when we do think of comparing it, I think that the two main things is Hamas wants to get rid of all the Jews all over the world. Hitler wanted to get rid of all the Jews all over the world. And when we hear certain stations, they talk about one side. And then I think about Nazi Germany. Between 1933 and 1939, when Hitler came to power, the Nazi Party gave out radios to people. And there was one station, it was the Nazi station, and that's what they heard. And the propaganda was so strong, and that's exactly what's happening now. And when you hear certain stations, you hear all the things that is against Israel, and Hamas isn't mentioned at all. They're the ones who started this war. They're the ones who came in and attacked innocent people on Shabbat, on Simchat Torah. It's just unheard of, and nobody's mentioning that at all. And we can't afford to let them forget.
And not only that, but they still have so many of our hostages.
And we don't know if they're alive or dead or what condition they're in or where they are.
The Red Cross has not visited them.
No, which is another thing that's just impossible to understand. And the United Nations is not complaining about that.
You know, yesterday I saw a picture that somebody sent me, I believe it was from Canada, they put up the famous posters of the hostages, and somebody drew a swastika. And I said to myself, I'm about to sit with Rena Quint tomorrow. Person that you were 10 years old when the Holocaust was over?
Yes. I was 3.5 when it started, and 9.5 when it ended. By the time I was 10, I came to the United States, to a different world.
So could you tell us a little about those years?
Sure, but having the swastika and this child, I'm not sure that anything has changed. Because during the war, when Jews were trying to get out, Canada was one of the people who said, one is too many. And they didn't want to take anybody in, neither did Australia or many of the other countries. And even the United States had very definite immigration. England took 10,000 children, and their parents were very brave to send them off. My story is different from most stories that you've heard. 1.5 million Jewish children were killed for no other reason that they were Jewish children. I remained alive. Most children were hidden or in Christian homes. I was in a ghetto, slave labor factory, various concentration camps. I was liberated from Bergen-Belsen, sent to Sweden with the orphans, and then brought a woman who lost her daughter, took me as her daughter to America. At the end, when she came to America, she died. I was adopted by an American, wonderful Jewish Zionistic couple, and that's the way I grew up. And then when I got older, I married this wonderful man who was vice president and president of the OU. I was very lucky to have him for 60 years. Okay, coming back, September 1st, 1939, World War II, the Holocaust started, and the first city that was invaded by the Nazis was Pietrka, my city. The rabbi originally was Rabbi Meir Shapiro. I found lots of documents, and one of the things I found is my parents' marriage license in 1930, where Rabbi Meir Shapiro married my parents. Wow. He left to build Chachmei Lublin, and Rabbi Lau took over. 1942, there was a very big action, and the first one of many, and half of Pietrkov, including my mother, my brothers, and Rabbi Lau, were taken to Treblinka. I lived in a house. This is a picture of my house. I've been back to Poland many times, but the first time I went with Yad Vashem, and I hired two people because I don't speak Polish. Yiddish was my language, and I found my house with a mezuzah still on the door. Can you imagine? There was the mezuzah.
Wow.
In 1989. I also found my birth certificate, my brother's birth certificate, in City Hall. And then there's a man who does a lot of research. I found my mother had a prenuptial agreement in 1930.
Wow.
Not a ketubah, prenuptial agreement. This is a picture with everything, so I know the kind of furniture and the kind of jewelry and what my mother held, but I don't know what she looked like. Early on, my father was taken to a work camp, a Hortensia glass factory. I've been there also. I remained in the house with my mother and my brothers. People living, when the Germans came in, they put a barbed wire fence around the Jewish section, and that was known as the ghetto. People living outside of the ghetto, Jewish people, were not allowed to live there. They had to move in. And then people in little shtetl and little villages had to move in. So just think of your apartments, no matter how nice they are. You have 4 and 5 and 6 families moving in. Very crowded. Wasn't enough food, and people were starving to death. When we think of starving, when we think of the hostages now and being behind, I mean, I feel very sorry for the Palestinians who are starving, but at least aid is coming to them. Hostages aren't getting anything if they're alive. People were starving in the ghetto. I guess I wasn't so much so because my mother had money, so she was able to sell a coat or jewelry or shoes and get potatoes or bread or whatever she needed. People were sick. There wasn't enough medicine. Poland is very cold. There was no heat. People were dying, but not dying fast enough. My father was taken away. In 1942, there was a big action. We were rounded up. This is the inside of my house. The Polish woman living there remembered my father, and she told me what it was like when the war started. And when the Jews left, she was able to come in, and the Polish were able to occupy the apartment. They were terrible stairs. And one night, in the middle of the night, they was banging down at the door. Nazis and Ukrainian army came in, and they told us we had 10 minutes to pack up and take anything we needed and get out of the house fast. We had to run down these stairs. People took whatever they could, maybe documents, maybe money, maybe food, maybe the baby, maybe the old grandmother, and we were taken to this big square called Platz Tribunalski. This was their market. People used to come with wagons to buy chicken and meat and flowers. We were brought into this big square, and from there we were chased with guns and with bayonets and with sticks, and like animals, we ran till we got to the synagogue. This is the Great Synagogue, where Rabbi Meir Shapiro and then Rabbi Lau were the rabbis. And you can see the Magen David on the bottom.
Yeah.
There are no Jews left, not a one. So there's no need for a synagogue. So there's now a library. And you can see in back of the library, there's a door.
Yep.
And that door is very, very important to me. Inside the synagogue, if you ask the librarian to open up the curtains, you can see a picture of the 10 Commandments. And in those 10 Commandments, you can see holes. Those holes are
Bullet holes.
Bullet holes. There was shooting going on. People were just dropping dead. There was hysteria. There was pandemonium. I was 6 years old at this point.
So you remember all this?
I remember a lot, but sometimes I doubt myself whether I remember it or I heard myself saying it. But now I don't have to remember because I have proof. I found lots and lots of things, including this picture is still there, and people going to Poland, to Piotrków. If you ask the librarian to open the curtains, and she's nice enough, she's annoyed, but she opens it up and you can see all this.
Wow.
I don't know how this happened. I vaguely remember, but I sometimes doubt myself, really. I must have been holding on to my mother's hand because that's what a 6-year-old would do. And I had 2 brothers, David and Yossi, and they must have been holding on to my mother, and my mother must have been holding on to us. Do I imagine it? Do I know it? I don't know. Somehow or other, there was a man in back of that door that I showed you, and he told me to run. And I must have been either been very stupid, very brave, not thinking maybe my mother pushed me, maybe God pushed me. I don't know how it happened. It's impossible that it happened. It's impossible that I'm here, but I really am. I mean, sometimes I have to prove to myself that I am. I ran out of that door. That was the last time I saw my mother, my brothers, aunts and uncles, cousins, neighbors, everybody. Everybody in that group were taken to Treblinka. The ones who couldn't get into the synagogue because there wasn't enough room were taken into the forest and shot. And now when you go there, you see this mass grave of people who never got into Treblinka. When I think of my being interviewed by the OU, when I think of what's happening today with the hostages and how Israel is alone again, I can't help thinking of my mother looking down at all the other people, and we need their help to see we're a small country, we're Israel. We're holding on to our faith. We're holding on to our Judaism. And in every generation, we're going before Pesach now, and it says in every generation there will be people who will come and try to annihilate us. And how, unfortunately, it's been so true, and it's certainly true right now. And we don't know. We're doing this today. What will happen 2 weeks from now when it's Pesach? Where will we be? Where will the hostages be? What will happen to the people on the border in the south or in the north? Not only do we think of the hostages and the people who were killed in Be'eri, where half of the kibbutz are people who are living, people who even tried to be friendly with their neighbors. Instead of making peace, they attacked us on Simchat Torah, where nobody was ready, nobody expected anything, and we never knew about these terrible tunnels that existed. Unfortunately, I don't know how our country was not more ready than it was.
When October 7th was happening, and you're hearing about the atrocities, what's going through your mind? I mean, I know that days afterwards, people started saying this is the worst thing that happened since the Holocaust.
This is another Holocaust. And for the people who are killed, can you imagine a little 3-year-old girl who saw her parents being murdered, and she was able to survive, and she ran to her neighbor's house. I think her name was Emily or something like that. And there was a mother, father, and 3 other children, and they took her in, and they got her into the safe room, where they thought they would be safe. But these terrible terrorists came, and they burnt down the whole house. And they took those people, including this little 3-year-old girl, to Gaza. And we don't know, what happened. But I think of myself as a 3-year-old. She couldn't do by herself. Hopefully that woman, and that woman did take care of her like child. And that's what happened to me. And I keep on saying, I hope that every one of these children and every one of these mothers will find each other to try to keep each other, to do something to help them. They can't get them food because they can't get out of their cages under those tunnels. With me, I sort of feel, I had 6 different mothers. And when my first mother was killed, there was another woman. And if I had somebody to hold on to or somebody to be next to, it meant so much. And I remember being at a wedding just before this happened, and there was a beautiful little flower girl walking down and throwing petals. And when she finished, she looked around, and she didn't see her mother there, and she gave out a scream. And then somebody picked her up and gave her to the mother. There was nothing wrong. This was a perfectly normal child. She was without her mother for a minute, what happens to these children who were taken away? And what happens to the mothers who don't know what happened to their children, or their fathers, or grandmothers and grandfathers? So you have these kinds of things. I also have the kind of thing that many of the young people who were at the festival, who were dancing without shoes, and they were taking in there, how cold it must be as the winter goes on. Did they ever get shoes? Did they live long enough to realize what was happening there? All these thoughts come through your mind, and you're so helpless, and the people around us. But there is a difference. There's a huge difference. We have an army. We have a country. We have people who are praying together. We have people who have taken in the people who had to run away. We didn't have any of that during the Holocaust. So there is a difference, and we have to remember that. And we have to remember we have to stay strong and together and help each other as much as we possibly can. I was lucky enough to have 6 different women to hold on to. I could not have survived them, and I am quite sure that God sent them to me.
I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that that's a message for all of us, that we need to realize how many of our brothers and sisters right now, whether it's a woman that's left at home because her husband is fighting in Gaza and she's home with little Pitzlach and the neighbors and the family are embracing her.
Everybody
Or whether
is.
it's our brothers and sisters from up north that still have no idea when they're going to be going home.
I have 12 boys in the army, 12 of them. Some of them are my...
Sons and grandsons.
Not sons, no. Grandsons. Grandsons. I have 22 grandchildren, Kanai and 49 great-grandchildren. We're on the way. We just had 2 new ones. And all those boys are. And I was interviewed by a famous radio station, and they asked me how many, and I said I have 12 boys. And they called back the next day, and how many boys do you have in the army? I have 12 boys. But how many boys do you have in the army? I have 12 boys. How many are blood relatives? And I said, I don't think about it. My grandson, who became my grandson because he married my granddaughter, is my grandson. And his children are my great-grandchildren. So it doesn't make a difference. But they're all fighting in the south and in the north. And some of them are not in the army. They're protecting their yeshuv.
Kitot Koninut.
What is it called?
Kitat Koninut. Yeah.
It's also a very difficult job. And my grandson...
We saw that those Kitot Koninut literally saved Yeshuvim.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, they're all my children. And others, their neighbors and the other people, we all have to work and stay together. We're all one family. But getting back to myself, my mother and Rabbi Lau and all those people were taken to Treblinka. And these are pictures of Treblinka, where there's nobody there, but nothing, and no graves. They didn't even have crematoria at the beginning. This is a picture of one of the stones of Pietrico with me. This man who told me to run, we go back to my story.
Yeah.
I don't know who he was. I think he may have been an uncle or somebody I called uncle. He took me to my father, who was working in a glass factory. My father hugged me and was delighted to see me, but what's he supposed to do with a 6-year-old girl? Girls were useless. Boys under the age of 10 didn't have much need either, but boys of the age of 10 could work. So my father said, from now on, you have to remember this, remember well. Your name isn't Fredja or Fredel in Yiddish. Your name is Froyam. You're not a girl, you're a boy. And your name is Froyam, and you're 10 years old. Say it over and over. My name is Froyam, I'm a 10-year-old boy. I'm a 10-year-old boy, my name is Froyam. I have to remember that. He got me some boy's clothing, cut my hair. I became a boy. And luckily, God was watching me. I worked with the men. They were terrible dogs. They were terrible scenes. People were being shot all the time. People being burnt in a glass factory. The fires are going all the time. Rabbi Lau and Naftali Levy were in the same factory also. The men helped me. People always help me. That's why I think it's so important that we help each other all the time. As much as I worked, as much as things worked out for us, one day the Allies, meaning the Americans the British and the Russians were getting close, and Germany wanted to hide, which is different than today also. Germany wanted to hide everything they had done. They even said that you were being resettled rather than being sent to Auschwitz. Hamas had cameras on their hats, and they would take people's iPhone and say, "Hey, Dad, I just killed a few of them. Aren't you proud of me?" Or we have pictures of of them pulling a girl out, completely bloodied, who had been raped. We have all these pictures. We have evidence. We didn't have any of that at the beginning of the war. Now, if you go to Yad Vashem, you can find many things. And there's something called an Auschwitz album, which shows the Nazis took those pictures themselves. But really, most of those, the Nazis wanted to
Erase.
To erase. So they decided to send the people out of Poland, where there were 6 extermination camps, Auschwitz, Majdanek, Sobibor, Chelmno, Belzec, and Treblinka, 2 different places. And my father, my uncle, and I, and the other men were put onto these cattle cars, called cattle cars because they're meant for cattle, and we were taken across the border. And
You know, in NCSY, which is the OU's youth group, they created a replica of a cattle car, and it's on wheels, and it's taken to all different cities across North America. You go inside, they close the door, you're inside, and the videos go on, showing in 20 minutes what happened with the Holocaust. I went with the Minister of Klita, Ophir Sofer, to Times Square when it was being displayed there. And we saw so many African Americans, white, Jews, etc., non-Jews, coming through the place asking, what is this? Why is this just sitting in the middle? And like you said before, people had no idea what the Holocaust was. They came in, and within 20 minutes, we had no idea.
Very, very important. In Washington, they had a car like that, and people found that couldn't go through it. So now you can go through the car, or you can go on the side of it. And in near Galim here in Israel, there's one, and I went in. It's all wooden. I somehow or other I thought of a metal car because that's what I think of now. That time there were wooden slits, and the windows was. Sometimes you hear that somebody jumped out of the window. I just remember very small barbed wire. Anybody who did, a miracle. But I keep on saying anybody who survived is a miracle. Anyway, when we got off in Germany, we had to jump down. We used the snow to eat it and to drink it. And there was light. It had been pitch black in there. And it was filthy in there. There was nothing to eat, nothing to drink, no toilet. So you can imagine, sometimes if you came from Greece or if you're Tunis, it could take 2 and 3 days to get there. From Poland, it wasn't as far. Anyways, while we were getting used to eating and drinking the snow and looking around, Germans came with bullhorns. You're being taken to camp. Men on one side, women on the other. My father realized that when you go into a camp, you have to get undressed, leave everything that you have, and if I would get undressed, they would see I'm not one of the boys, and they would kill me, they would kill him. He realized that was impossible. He met a woman whom he knew, a school teacher, and he asked her if she would keep an eye on me. And he promised, and fathers are supposed to keep their promises, to meet me. He never kept that promise. I never saw him again. I did find lots and lots of information that I found, which is amazing. This is a train schedule, and it has the 2 names of the 2 Lau brothers on top, L-A-U, and my father and my uncle, Lichtenstein. I never saw my father again after we were separated when we got to Germany. The men were taken to Buchenwald, and I found in the archives of Yad Vashem a train schedule with all the people. They have train schedules all over. They even had to pay to put pieces. Each person was like a piece, and you had to pay. And there's even a sign in Yad Vashem that if you get a round-trip ticket to Auschwitz, it's cheaper. I mean, they were so big about deceiving you, different from Hamas. Anyway, this shows Rabbi Naftali Lavi, who changed his name is Lau, and Israel Meir Lau, and my father, who was Yitzchak Lau, and his Lichtenstein. This is the L, but there are many. It's our book, and I found a card when he entered Buchenwald. You had to sign in the way you do when you go into a hospital or something like that. So it was very.
Polish Jew.
He was a Polish and he was Jewish, right? Yeah. So I found a lot of information that I would not have known. Anyway, I never saw my father again, but I had a new mother. I don't remember her name, don't remember what she looked like, but she said, "Come, Fredja," that was my name again, Fredel, "we will walk together." And we walked in the snow, and people just fell down. If you sat down, you were shot. If you fell down, you were shot, until we finally got to Bergen-Belsen. And there, we had to leave everything. My father had given me a picture of my mother, father, and brothers. I was holding it. One of the soldiers thought maybe I had a diamond, maybe I had money. Pried up my hand, so a picture tore it up. I have no idea what my mother, father, brothers, anybody looked like. I don't know if I look like them, if my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. We were taken to barracks, and by the time we came, all the barracks were broken and all the beds. Every 5 or 6 women would get a blanket to cover themselves, and we slept on the stone straw floor with lice and fleas and rats. Every day, hundreds of people died, and the women would take their blanket and throw the body someplace on the mass expanse of Bergen-Belsen. Every place you went, you smelled and you saw death around you. And you know what? It was just normal for me. I didn't know it was something terrible. You just threw the body out. One day I was very, very sick with typhus, with diphtheria, and I'll tell you how I know. I mean, I didn't know how to read or write or speak any language. Yiddish was the language. I had typhus and diphtheria. Somehow or other, I found myself with bodies, living and dead, outside on a pile. It was better to be outside in the cold than be in those filthy barracks being bitten by rats and lice and fleas. And something happened that day that never happened before. Soldiers wearing different uniforms, speaking a different language, came in. They were the British soldiers. And they said, "We have come to free you. You can go home. Go home, you're free." What's home? Where am I going? What language are they speaking?
You didn't understand them?
I didn't understand. I didn't understand the language. I also didn't understand, because when you have typhus, everything is spinning like vertigo, and just leave me alone. I'm going to die. Everybody's going to die, so just leave me alone. Well, they didn't leave me alone. They took me on a stretcher to a makeshift hospital. They buried 10,000 bodies to get rid of all the filth and all the smell and all the dirt and infectious diseases. And they made these mass graves, 10,000 bodies. And in every religion, you're supposed to have a little bit of respect. But you can't do that with 10,000 bodies. So with bulldozers, they pushed in the bodies, and then they burnt down all the barracks that the Jews lived in. So there's nothing left of Bergen-Belsen to prove that I was there or what I did. I remember this, but I found a letter which says that this is to certify that Fredja Lichtenstein, born in Pietrkov, entered Sweden in a transfer sponsored by the Swedish Red Cross from German concentration camps.
Wow.
I don't know what happened to the woman who was, quote, my mother. I met another one, and I was taken to a DP, displaced persons camp, and that woman disappeared, another woman came. I was very sick. I was taken to Hasselholm to a hospital, and Christian family wanted to adopt me. I wanted very much to go with them. They brought me candy and food and clothes and a doll. The people around me said something I didn't understand at all. They said that I was Jewish. I had no idea what it meant to be Jewish. I don't remember my mother lighting candles or preparing for Passover or my learning the Haggadah or Manishtan. I don't remember any of this. But they said that all the children, the Jewish children, would be taken to a place called Palestine. And there I would meet my mother and father and brother. Why did I say Palestine? Because there was no Israel in 1945. And that's the big difference of then and now. if we had in Israel. They were sending people to Palestine, and then the British very often would take them and put them into Atlit or to Cyprus or to camps. And then the children who were lucky later on were sent to kibbutzim, and that's what I was supposed to do. But God had a different role for me. And by the way, this is how I know that I had typhus and diphtheria. Barbara Sofer, who helped me write my book, found this in the hospital in Sweden. Wow. And here it says, this is my name and the date, and I had typhus and diphtheria. We found this in 2017.
Wow.
And they still have it from 1945. Somebody also found this picture of me in a children's camp, and we're wearing these identification things. So that's me over there.
How do you know it's you?
Oh, Barbara's very good about this. She has a friend who works with the police, and they identified Ilan Ramon, and they can tell by your eyes, by the distance between your eyes, the color, the ears and things like that, and they can see what you look like and what you will look like. And so she sent this picture in, and somebody else who gave her a picture of me where I said that wasn't me in a different camp.
So they know what you're going to look like when you're 120?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
They didn't tell me that yet. But anyway, I was with these children waiting to go to Palestine, and everybody said, we're going to start a whole new life. I met a woman who was on the other side of the barracks. Her name was Anna. She had 2 children, Fanny, 9.5 years old, born in Germany, and Sigmund, who was older. And they were going to go to America. Somebody had to sponsor you. America wasn't so good. You had to have a quota. You had to have somebody who sponsored that you wouldn't be a ward of the state. You had to have money. You had to have tickets on a boat and all that. And this woman, Anna, got 3 tickets for herself, her daughter Fanny, and her son Sigmund. Fanny died. Her death was my luck. And she asked me if I want to be her daughter.
Wow.
And she gave me her name. She gave me her birthday. She didn't need it. She was dead, and I didn't have one. I did have a birthday. I have no idea when I was born. There are many things of me saying Fredja Lichtenstein Pietrikov with no birthday. I didn't have one. I didn't have an address. Those are things I didn't remember. Now I know all of these things. Anyway, she said that I could come with her as her daughter. And everybody said how lucky I am. I should go to America. And from America, I could always go to Palestine. So I got a new name. I got a new birthday. I got a new outfit to wear. We went on a ship. Nobody talked about the Holocaust. There was food, there was drink, there was music. I don't remember people say that there was a difficult trip because people got seasick. I don't remember that. Everybody was just so happy they were going to America. When we got to America, we saw the Statue of Liberty. We saw the big houses. I thought I'd live in one of those things like the Empire State because they said all Americans live in big houses. I never had experience to know what a little house is or big house. None of this. Anyway, I went to Ellis Island. I was registered as Fanny's daughter. Everything was fine. We went to a little town called Lindenhurst, Long Island. There was a Rabbi Goldberg who was in charge there. He was a cousin of Anna's. We got food. We had Friday night dinners with chicken soup and chicken, and life was wonderful. In the summertime, we went up to the Catskill Mountains, which people used to do. I went swimming. I learned English. All the children taught me every day, say man, say woman, say book, say chalk. Every day I learned new words, and English became the only language that I really know well right now, and I speak like an American because I was adopted by American people, and I didn't have to forget any language. I didn't know any. I spoke Yiddish, I don't know if I ever spoke Polish, but I spoke a little bit of Swedish when I was there for a while, and here I am as an American. And everything was going along nicely. I learned to play with dolls. I learned everything. And one day Anna disappeared. It wasn't so terrible because all the women, I had food, nobody was being shot, I had a bed, I had a blanket, I was learning English. One day Anna's family came back looking very sad, looking very forlorn, crying. And they said, pack up your things, Fanny. That's my name now. I have to remember my all different names. I had 6 mothers and 6 names, and I know all of them. And they took me to a cemetery. Anna had died. She brought me to America. It's like God sent her to do something. She finished her job. She died. They took me to a cemetery. I had never seen a cemetery. Everybody was crying. Everybody was weeping except me. I didn't know you're supposed to cry when somebody dies. I didn't know this was not a normal thing. And I had no idea. There was one hole and there was a casket. I had never seen anything like that. In Bergen-Belsen, if somebody died, you just took the body and you threw it out. And maybe you went back to see, maybe they left a piece of bread or something to wear or something. Here, everybody was sad, weeping. Maybe they thought I didn't love Anna. I didn't know. I didn't know you're supposed to cry. We went home to sit Shiva, and now the family had a problem. They brought over a woman who was going to take care of her 2 children. Now that she wasn't there, they really didn't want me. And Sigmund was old enough to be on his own. And one of the people there knew a family in Brooklyn, New York. Their name was Leah and Jacob Globe. They were 46 years old, and they were never able to have a baby. And they had no children of their own. And I went there and for Shabbat, and I came there. They had milk and cookies for me, and they welcomed me, and they had a little dog. And I'm terrified of dogs, of what happened in the factory. But they told me he'd be okay, and he became my best friend. And I have pictures of growing up with Buddy Hakelev. Anyway, we spent a lovely Shabbat together, and when it was time to leave, they asked me the same question that had been asked me, would you like to stay and be our daughter? Well, of course I wanted to stay. This time I had a mother and a father and a dog and a bed and a house and everything that you can imagine. And they changed my name. My name, which started off as Fredja, Fredel, then I became a boy, Froim, Fanny. Fredel means joy in English, and joy in Hebrew is Rena. And that's how I got my name, Rena. I'm 46. It was a new name. Now it's a very popular name. And they gave me a very, very good life. They gave me a good education and music lessons. And I had friends. And then when I got older, I met this wonderful man, Rena Quint, who was a rabbi and a lawyer. And we got married, and we had a wonderful life for 60 years. We had 4 children. He got to see 22 grandchildren, and he did not get to see right now, 49 great-grandchildren. Hopefully another one is going to come around Pesach time. And I've met a lot of interesting people. I started working in Yad Vashem, first as a docent, where I guided interesting people also in the Art Museum, Historic Museum. And then when I went to Poland and I found all this information, they asked me to give testimony. And since '89, I found it. But in '81, I forgot to tell you that there was a gathering of Holocaust survivors, the 36th anniversary. And there I was looking, and nobody ever heard of me. And I didn't, but I met Naftali Lavie, and he took me to a group of Petrograd survivors. Nobody remembers me. I don't remember them. I started a whole new life, and they think of me as an American, which I tried to tell them that I was in Petrograd, and they don't understand why an American woman is interested in Petrograd. And it's hard for me to explain to them. But I have really met some very interesting people. This is the letter that I got in 1981, giving me all the information. My name was Fredja Lichtenstein. I was born in Pietrków. My address, my mother's name, my father's name. I was Jewish. I was Polish. I went into different camps. I was liberated from Bergen-Belsen, Sweden, child adopted in America, case closed. So here I have proof of everything that I'm telling you, because sometimes I'm not sure that it's so. This is my birth certificate, first of all. I found it's in the Hall of Records. It was hard to find because I didn't really know my birth certificate. I was using Fanny's, and I was born in Germany. And here I'm looking in Poland, and they thought I was crazy, but eventually we wound. And here's a picture. Not many people can say that they were kissed by the President of the United States, but here I am, being kissed by Biden. And you can also see a picture with Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid and Dani Dayan, who's the head of Yad Vashem, and Blinken and Biden and Herzog.
Present.
So the year before, there was Pelosi with all the congressmen. By the way, they were supposed to come to my house last week. I do a Shabbat of a lifetime where I invite people in, and they canceled. I don't know if they canceled because they wanted to or because it was, I don't know why, but they canceled. People are canceling. But here you can see Biden with the chair and Herzog. And this is a very important picture, I guess, because you can see all the people who were at this ceremony in the Hall of Names in Yad Vashem. So thank God I'm living in Israel. And I think it's very important to speak about the Holocaust. I don't know if we can compare it. There's no comparison. We just have to pray and stay together and keep as many of the holidays and keep Jewishness alive and hope that Israel will stay forever. And all these people who try to kill us every year, another group comes by. Most of those are not here, thank God. The Romans, the Babylonians, they've all disappeared. Hopefully Hamas will disappear too.
Amen. I think we all agree with that blessing. I think Hamas disappearing from this world will only do good for the world.
Absolutely.
Let me
We need
ask
God's
you,
help with that.
we're coming close to Yom HaShoah.
Right.
Do you think this Yom HaShoah this year is going to be different for you than previous years after October 7th?
I don't know if it's going to be different. I don't know. I know that it's my obligation to speak as much as I have and just hope for the best. Hopefully by Yom HaShoah, all the hostages that are alive will be back, and the ones who are sick, because I'm sure there's nobody coming out of there the way they went in. All these people who were just dancing and having a good time after being in captivity. Right now it's 6 months, and starving and being cold and being beaten, and the women, I just don't even want to think of what's happening. I think we all have to think of the good things. I think that I have to think that it's a miracle that I'm alive. And I think that it also shows hope, that there's a possibility. So hopefully the people who will come out, and all the hostages have to be freed and come out, and Hamas has to be eliminated. And when I say all these things, thank God I'm not in the government to make decisions of how to do it. But we have to go on with our lives. We have to have the hope and the courage and the willingness to keep on going. We have to. We have no choice.
I don't think we do. I want to go back to something that you said earlier. You said that the difference today is that we have an army. The difference today is that we have Jewish families that can take you in. And which brings me to a week and a half after Yom HaShoah, when we're going to be standing on Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, which without a doubt is going to be very different this year than it was last year and previous years. We're going to celebrate 76 years of the State of Israel, but 76 years where we're
How
we're
many
all
wars have we
traumatized.
had? But when you think of the Six-Day War, that was an impossible war. There was no way. And all these countries that were against us, which is what we're having now. But we got it. But also when you think about it, in 48, when we fought, and we had all these people, all these armies against us, we got this sliver of land, and we were happy that we got it. They still complained. They hated us. They hated us because of our religion, because of our race, and now because we have this country. And they want the West Bank back, and they want Hebron, and they want all these different places that were there. They had it. Why did they hate us then? And why did they start a war again?
In 1929, before there was a State of Israel, they massacred the Jews of Hebron.
Right. My husband's father, Rena Quint, left Hebron. He came from Slobodka, And he was in the yeshiva in Hebron. And when all this was going on, he ran to America. Luckily, he got in. And that's how my husband was born in the United States instead of being massacred. But I have children now who started a yeshuv it's called Karmei Tzor, and my son-in-law...
On the way to Hebron from Gush Etzion.
That's right. And my son-in-law was in the yeshiva in Har Etzion, and Rabbi Lichtenstein and Rabbi Amital sent 11 of their boys to start a yeshuv. And Baruch Hashem, they now have over 200 families. On Yom HaZikaron, we have to remember the fallen soldiers. And now you can't help but remembering the hostages and all the other people who were murdered just walking in the street in places. I mean, even in Nitivot and Sderot and even when we weren't at war, people are being massacred all the time. And right now we're waiting to see what is Iran going to do. And last night, every day there's another terrible happening, one way or the other, and we're in a lot of jeopardy. We've got a lot to worry about. But we just have to hope that God is on our side.
Do you have a doubt?
I guess I do. I believe in God, and I pray that He helps us. But when I see all these people who are left behind, all these hostages, why can't we find them? Why can't we help all those people? Where is God there? Where was God during the Holocaust? I guess I'm ambivalent. Do you have any doubts?
I don't have doubts.
Well, I do. I'm very much afraid. I mean, I've lived a long life. I'm 88 years old. But I have little children who are living in Karmei Tzor and all these different places. And they don't have doubts, and they think they're living a perfectly normal life. I worry going on the street, and then I say, why are you worried? If they go every day there and they live there, why should you be worried? And you know, the other day I also said, I get Social Security in America, and I said, maybe I should leave money in there in case I have to run. Why would I run there? All my family and everything that I have is here. What would I think of? Ridiculous. I'm not going out. I'm not leaving Israel for anything.
When you hear about the anti-Semitism in North America today?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, when I think about the hostages also, when there were people in the area working with people in Gaza working there, and when I think of neighbors in Germany or in Poland who were neighbors, and when the war broke out, they turned out to be our enemies, and all the anti-Semitism going on. And I think all these chanting, all these flags from the river to the sea, they don't even know what they're saying, but they're being paid. And when you think about the universities, where I don't know why any Jewish kid would want to go to Columbia or to Penn or to any schools. I speak to these schools, and there are a lot of good kids, and a lot of kids from China and Japan and Asian kids. There's so much more anti-Semitism now, and people who don't know anything about it or why they're doing it, they're going into all these marches. And they're protesting against Israel. And everybody's forgotten. Hamas started this war. People were sleeping in their beds, people waiting for families of a holiday to celebrate. Many of those people aren't religious, but they knew that a holiday is coming, a Yom Tov is coming, and they prepared, and it was going to be a happy day. And it turned out to be a massacre. So yes, I say, why could God allow this to happen? I know that Rabbi gave you different things. I don't accept any of them. I just don't understand.
I don't think anybody can come and say exactly why things happened. But I think there's a greater belief that when you look at the perspective of the last 100 years, and you can clearly see it better than I could, and you see how Klal Yisrael has taken so many jumps forward in the last 100 years. From a people that was scattered all over the world, we see that God promised us through his prophets that he's going to bring us back to the land of Israel. When Zechariah talks about the fact that we're going to have all, elders sitting in Yerushalayim, seeing people, little kids playing the streets of Yerushalayim,
Right.
that was like, really? We're talking destruction, we're talking about the Beis HaMikdash being burnt and Jews being dispersed all over the world, and that's what you're talking about? Are you crazy? And now, walking from the OU office to here, you walk by 2 parks and you see kids jumping around, giggling and laughing.
I want to tell you why. I used to babysit for my 2 grandchildren. One has 5 children now, one has 7. But when they were the Kanai Hara, but when they were little, I was babysitting, and I was called to guide in Yad Vashem, and there was a show called No Child's Play, and they sat on the floor with their crayons. I brought everything, as a good grandmother would, and then we had to go to the Children's Memorial. Children's Memorial is dark, and it's frightening. There's a rail that you hold on to because you can't see where you're going, and there are a lot of lights. There was one light, it looks like stars, to remember the children or the souls of the children. And I didn't know how I was going to take these children in, but with my Holocaust mentality, or my Galut mentality, I didn't want to leave them outside alone. So I said, listen, I'm going to hold your hand. It's going to be very dark, but it'll be okay. We're going to go there, be scary. We're going to hear the names of the people, the children who were killed. But I'm holding your hand, and everything will be fine, and we're going to go outside, and everything will be fine. I kept on saying that, but it's scary. And we walked through very silently, and I was holding their hands. We're very worried about their reaction. We came out, and Odelia, my 6-year-old, said, Eise Yofi, kol kach yafet, so beautiful. I said, weren't you scared? No, don't you see how beautiful it is? Didn't you see all those stars of children? Don't you remember Abraham was promised that the children would be like the stars in the sky? She saw the beauty of it and the positivity where I saw the negative part. So our children are our hope.
I think our children are growing up with the blessing of having the State of Israel, the blessing of having an army,
That's right.
the blessing that Hamas knows that they attacked us and we're not going to sit quiet anymore.
Right, and also
the
if
days
you
of
think
the
about
pogroms are over.
Right, but when you think of a very positive, which may not compare to people dying and killing, when you think of someone like the OU, that I look at a project and it says OUP, I said, okay, I can use this, at least if you don't have kitniot or something like that, which is a new kind of thing when we first came to Israel. But the OU is doing all these things, and the classes that you go to, and the people that you meet. And I'm lucky enough to live close by to it, and the tidbits that comes out with your articles and other people's articles, so that you don't even have to go out of your home to know what parsha we're reading and what holiday is coming and what is going on. So we just have to hope and pray.
And continue giving chizuk to those that need chizuk.
Amen.
Like you said.
Yeah.
I think that we're walking away from this incredible interview. Very insightful to me as a person that wants to be of the leading force of the Klal Yisrael, and a person that feels that it's my responsibility to pass on your messages to the Jewish people. That when I look at my boys that are in the army today, when I look at my grandchildren, when I look at my siblings, my neighbors, and the younger generation here, many times we take for granted what we have. We take for granted that we can walk around Yerushalayim and walk around Tel Aviv without a worry. We take for granted the fact that we have an army. We take for granted the fact that, thank God, the economy is doing great and the shekel is worth more and more. And we have to realize that these are major blessings that we're getting.
That's right.
And you've seen so much. You've seen the Jewish people at its darkest moments. And while we're going through a very challenging time right now, and this Yom HaShoah that we're going to have, and Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut that we're going to have is going to be very different than the year before. I think it's putting so much into perspective, so much that we took for granted, we don't take for granted anymore. And for the younger generation, not you, you never took the army for granted,
No.
but we did. And I think that we're all realizing what happened to the state of Israel when the IDF wasn't responding for a couple hours. And just what the enemies that we have want to do to us, and how much they pray that we won't have an army. And therefore the fact that we have the ability today to live in Israel, to learn Torah in Israel, to serve our country, is just really a tremendous, tremendous blessing. And thank you. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for talking to all the OU groups that you do all over the years. You literally inspire each and every one of them. And we promise you that we're going to take your message and we're going to get it out there for many, many more years. Even when you're going to be 120 years old and you're going to be sitting here in
Anybody
the
who wants
house.
to hear, no matter what, I'm on Zoom, and I really feel it's my responsibility, my duty, even though after a while you sort of feel you're repeating yourself. But what holiday were we promised that it would be? It was a Tisha B'Av, that would be a holiday of joy instead of. So maybe Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron can also get to a part where we could say, thank God. Let's hope God will help us and we can change that from a terrible place to a hopeful. It's never going to be wonderful with all these people losing their families. And I mean, you see boys who have lost their legs but are willing to go back on prosthesis, and thank God we even have those prosthesis. Nothing like that was available for the Holocaust or after.
Yeah.
So thank God we have Israel.